I want to share with you my experience taking on a dopamine detox, what I learned from it, and what rules I'm going to put into place in the future to try and make my life a little bit better. Now, it turns out sometimes us ENFPs have trouble focusing and staying on task. I know, news to me as well. And this became very clear to me over Christmas. See, over Christmas here, as you may see, I'm somewhere new. We're in Portugal for the last month or so, and I decided to take a full break over Christmas and New Year's and just basically relax and do whatever I wanted. Problem was, it was a little bit cold outside at that point. It was a very long winter here, all 3 weeks of it. And that being the case, there wasn't really much to do except be inside. And I basically just watched YouTube and played some video games and things that were nice because I don't do that as much normally. And it was sort of relaxing, but after New Year, what ended up happening is I lost all ability to focus. See, what I had done is for about a week and a half, I just let myself go wild with all these high dopamine activities. And then when it came to getting back to work, I wasn't relaxed, I wasn't recharged, and my focus was a complete mess. I realized this after the first week when I was not able to get nearly as much done as I had planned or wanted to do. And at that same time, I came across this video talking about a dopamine detox. The concept made total sense to me. As you do more and more high dopamine activities, your baseline for the amount of excitement you need to do something goes higher and higher. And that means things like reading or working on your website or responding to emails from amazing fans that you would love to write back becomes more and more difficult because your baseline is that much higher. And the proposed solution to this was a dopamine detox. Take one day and turn off all high dopamine activities, including things like even music. Anything that is enjoyable, basically don't do it for one day, and this will reset your baseline so that absolutely anything seems exciting and interesting. I bought into this because I've done fasts before where for 2 days or a couple weeks at times, I basically didn't eat anything but water, or I did that cayenne pepper fast maybe a decade ago. And after that, I can tell you that any food tastes good. After a 2-day water fast, salad is the most delicious thing on earth. A piece of bread, absolute heaven. So this concept made total sense and I decided to jump into it. Section 2, the experiment. Now, while the video proposed one day, I decided, why not step things up a notch? And I decided to do a full weekend. I treated it like a 2-night hotel stay. So I checked in late Friday night, turned off all electronics, laptop, phone, everything fully turned off, and I would not turn anything back on until Monday morning, with the one exception is I had a video call with my personal trainer Saturday morning. So turned my phone on, did that, then turn it back off. So this was 2 days with a complete detox. Gabby was even kind enough not to play music or watch any shows on her side, at least without headphones, so that I wasn't brought into that. So that was the experiment. 2 full days with absolutely no electronics except my Kindle, and here's what happened.
It was awesome.
By Saturday afternoon, it's like I had become a new human being. I read for at least 7 hours on the first day. I had not been able to sit down and read for more than maybe 30 to 45 minutes in years. That's why I love audiobooks. That's how I get through so many larger psychology books, is via audiobook. But I just sat there and read and read and read. I don't know if part of it was maybe a placebo effect or because this challenge was new and in my mind I was like, okay, now I will become a great reader, a calm man who just sits down. I don't know why it worked, but it worked really well. I finished the second half of a spy book that I had started in Spain in June. It's a really good book, by the way. It's called The Traitor and the Spy. It's about one hell of a hero who did what was right for the world. And despite it being such a great book, I had not read more than half of it in about 6 months, and I finished the entire book that day. So right away, an ability to sit and read and be focused came into play, but other things came into focus as well. For example, at the end of this spy book, which was a true story, what would you imagine I would do? Of course, go over to Wikipedia, learn more about this person, look for other books by this author, look for other spy books. That was my impulse for sure. But I couldn't do it. So what did I do? Well, I went through my Kindle because over the years, I've probably built up 50 books that I wanted to read, but hadn't read. And I thought, okay, this is probably a good thing. Why would I go buy another book when I have all these other books that I told myself at some point I wanted to read? So I found myself reading some book from 1850 on a journey through Africa to discover the source of the Nile. And I even finished that book a couple days ago. Another thing I noticed, I definitely became a better boyfriend in terms of being present and being up for having conversations all the time and everything else. Not to mention making some homemade guacamole, cleaning up more, and just generally doing more things that take more time. Like for example, the rooftop I'm on right now is a great place to sit out and have tea in the morning and read. It's in the sun, you hear the roosters in the background, which I'm sure you are hearing. It's absolutely perfect. But I tend to drink things fast, so I make one cup of tea and then I'd be walking downstairs every 5 minutes to make a new one. I'd get distracted, I'd never get any reading done. Well, I found with this extra time that I thought to myself, why don't I make a tea kettle and make some milk and, set up this whole tea serving set. And then I could come up here and spend an hour having tea, and when it runs out, that's what tea kettles are for. I know I come off as an absolute moron in this video, but that's okay. My point with it is that I noticed I would spend more time on things, be less impatient, and because of that, actually find better solutions to things. Actually make a really proper meal. I tend to cook most meals anyhow, but I tend to do it quickly and efficiently. And in this case, I spent my time thinking, how could I make this taste better? Or how could I improve this? So all around, it was a positive experience. I found myself reading a lot more, being more present, and ultimately at the end of the weekend, I could say I felt like I had a lot more fulfilling and in a way, a lot more productive experience. I wouldn't necessarily say that anything I did over the weekend stuck with me, like I wrote some great novel or something. But definitely going into Monday, I was a lot calmer and relaxed and more productive on Monday because compared to no electronic, the work I needed to get done was very exciting and interesting. So it was a complete win on that, which then brought me to this question of what's next? Like this weekend was great. What should I do going forward? Do I just do this one weekend? Do I do a detox once a month? What is the right way to do it? Well, I thought about this a lot because I found the experience was
Really good.
And one of the things I know about myself in the past is I've done some experiments or eliminated things from my life. For instance, stopping following the news at all. I did that for a full year after a time in Mexico when a friend of mine just said, hey, you're going bonkers reading the news, take some time off. And I told her I would take a year off, and I did. That was a great year. It was really nice not following the news. But somehow at the end of the year, I just gradually started reading the news and then got sucked back into it all again. And that really wasn't a conscious choice. It didn't serve me. And I was thinking about this weekend, how great it was. And I thought, I don't just want to get pulled back into my old way just because that's what happens ultimately. I mean, the things that are high in dopamine that we love doing are naturally going to pull us into them, right? There's a reason people like cocaine. It's probably a very fun experience. So I came up with a few rules and then a clause I've added to it, which could be one of the greatest things I've ever thought of for myself and for staying on track. I'll share that at the end. The first is that I'm going to continue this each weekend with a bit of caveats, and I'm still experimenting with what will be allowed. For instance, it's actually Sunday and I'm filming this. Obviously, this camera is electronic. It would be really cool if it wasn't. So I'm having some exceptions. I'm not turning on my laptop. I'm not really going on my phone except for music. I don't know what I'm going to do in the long run to make it work, but I'm trying to find a middle ground. I don't want to spend Saturday and Sunday every weekend just sitting and reading. That's not really the best thing either in many ways. So I want to find some middle ground where maybe I can do everything, but I have to be offline. So I can do some writing, I can do some business planning, I can do some filming maybe, and listen to music, things like that, but it's still giving me a huge disconnect and resetting things a bit. So I'm still figuring that all out, but Saturday and Sunday, there are restrictions and some form of basically a dopamine detox. The other thing I'm doing, which might even be bigger, is 8 p.m. every night, electronics get turned off fully, except Friday. Friday is a free-for-all, can do whatever until whenever it is that I go to bed. But Monday to Thursday, 8 p.m., turning off everything. And that I think is gonna have one of the biggest effects because already since doing this, I'm now getting up at 7, 8 a.m. where more and more I was waking up later and later. I'm going to bed a bit earlier and I'm waking up in a great state and already sleeping better. So that's really positive. And then another thing I'm doing with it is in the morning, I don't have a strict rule yet for how it works with like checking phone and email or having electronics at all. But I'm planning out my days with 2 to 4 things I want to get done that day and one thing that I'm labeling the most important. And until I get that one most important thing done, I'm trying to stay offline and basically get up, only do that most important thing. And then if I want to check email, if I want to do whatever, fine. There's only so many rules you can really set up. And I've already for New Year's gave up coffee and alcohol. So like, I'm thinking of my poor soul. I need something, right? I can't be creating a total prison. But on that note, actually, while I say it, I don't really feel like I'm creating a prison. I actually feel like I have more freedom now. One of my New Year's resolutions was to have more clarity of thought. And that was partially why I decided to get rid of alcohol, because you tend to sleep better if you're not drinking. You obviously, in many cases, think better, although sometimes you have some genius after a bottle or two of wine. But ultimately, that was what I wanted. And I actually feel more freedom now. I can't say I felt freedom when I was like reading about the news or playing games or having that need for dopamine on different things. Like, is that a sense of freedom? I don't really think so. And so I actually feel a lot more freedom now, even though there is structure. And this is something I've talked a bit about before. I think especially for us NFP types, ENFPs and INFPs, having a structure and some rules can actually give us more freedom and give us a lot more of a sense of control. So as you may have picked up, some of these rules aren't 100% solidified yet. I'm giving myself a little wiggle room over the next few weeks to figure out exactly what works and what doesn't. Things like phoning friends and family, should that be allowed? What I might end up doing is having a second phone, get one of my older phones or something, and have that where I can use it on the weekends for music and for phoning friends and family, but not having anything else on it. I'm not really sure what I'll do, but I'm gonna figure out these rules, and I might do an update video in, let's say, 2 to 6 weeks, based on what has really worked and what maybe isn't practical, because I want this to be for the long term. And that brings me to this rule I made for myself. In a lot of Europe, contracts are auto-renew, which is a little annoying as someone who's not used to that. So if you sign up for a gym, you have a 2-year membership, and if you don't cancel 3 months before the end of that 2 years, you get another 2-year membership. Same thing on a lot of cell phone contracts and all that. Things auto-renew, which is what it is, right? And in this case, I thought, wouldn't auto-renew be great? Because as I said earlier, a lot of the times I do something that makes my life better, but I don't auto-renew it. At the end of it, I just let it go. So I made myself an auto-renew clause with this. So here's what I'm doing. For the next 3 months, I'm gonna follow these rules and keep this up. And that includes the coffee and alcohol aspect. And around the beginning of April, if I do not consciously choose to eliminate any certain rules, then all of this continues until the end of the year. And I'm recommitted to follow this until the end of the year, at which case, auto-renew applies again. And what that means is, for any of these specific rules, that I need to either speak to my team or my coach or maybe Gabby, someone that will call me out on it, and I can say, hey, this rule isn't working for me because of this, this, and this. Turns out with coffee, I'm a much better person. I need my coffee back. And if they buy it, and I can't be too persuasive, but if they buy it and say, yeah, that makes sense, this rule's not really serving you, then I can get rid of that rule and continue as normal in that area. So it has to be on a rule by rule basis. And I also have to, like I said, make a point of it. It can't just be unintentional, just going back to normal, reverting to the other way of doing things. And I think that's going to be a really powerful strategy. It's going to force me to be very proactive and make a conscious choice. Because as I said, the natural impulse is to slip back. There's a reason these activities can be addicting and enjoyable. And in this case, for me, this year, next year, they're really important years of my life. And I'd rather make some sacrifices a little bit on the fun or the dopamine hits to continue to grow as a person, to grow my business, to grow my knowledge, and all that. Let me know in the comments if this is something you're going to consider doing at the very least. I'm not saying jump on board for 3 months. When I shared this inside my ENFP Unleashed community, quite a few people jumped on board and said, I'm gonna try that as well. It's ultimately up to you if you wanna try something like this. Don't commit to 3 months or a year or anything like that. Just take a day or 2. I think 2's better. It could be a weekend, but maybe for you a weekend doesn't work. Take 2 days and try it out. And if you can't imagine turning off electronics for 2 days, then you definitely need to try this out. So let me know in the comments below if you're going to try this out for a day or for 2 days. And if you do, come back and let us know how it went for you. By the way, I'm Dan, this is Dreams Around the World, and my mission is to help you become the best version of yourself, all while creating the most awesome life possible for you and those you love. So if you're not yet a subscriber, hit subscribe, hit the bell, and come back often. I publish new videos each and every week. So here's to a little less dopamine and a lot more fulfillment. See you in the next video soon.